you're welcome to Norix River, you know, well, for all of us that were voting for that, all we wanted was water in the river. I mean, that's all we expected. People talked about development on the river, and, you know, I don't know, right, hard to believe that would ever happen. Well, we didn't know it, but the engineers that had created that ditch put a perfectly geometrically straight straightaway. And we had a rowing enthusiast who went and convinced some philanthropists to start creating a rowing venue. And we've now created the finest venue in the world for the sports of canoe, kayak, and rowing. We had absolutely no history in those sports, as you probably would have guessed. In fact, stealing a line from my own book, I think I said that, you know, with a few ex-astronauts living in the state, I think we had more Oklahomans had been in outer space than had been in a rowing competition. But the Olympic trials the last 2 years in kayak have been held in Oklahoma City, and we've created this incredible series of interactive games and opportunities for young people generally. It's kind of like an amusement park built on the river. But the idea that we have the only lighted rowing course in the world, that the world's greatest rowers would be gathering in Oklahoma City, in downtown Oklahoma City, to compete in rowing competitions is just one of probably the biggest transformations the city has seen in one generation. But you know, it's an attitude of you know, standing on the shoulders of those came before you. You know, one person has one vision, and then somebody else comes along and has a new vision, and you just keep building on all of those things. How about some questions? No one ever wants to ask the first question. You ever notice that? Mayor Condon, I'm going to call on you if no one asked that question.
So what's in building a downtown, what do you think are the major components for the future of downtowns? With the revolution, you know, you're in the state of Amazon, read the Wall Street Journal this morning, Nordstrom's is opening 3 more non-inventory stores in LA. What do you see as components for a downtown?
Well,
successful downtown for the next.
Well, I think it's housing, but you got to have education too. And so, you know, long term, these millennials will move into a downtown area, but if you don't have the education answered for them, they'll likely leave and go to the suburbs just like the previous generations did. So I think the biggest challenge for most cities is having a quality inner-city education system, or at least options for families that have kids. And maybe that means charter schools or the good quality public schools, but options. You know, we have 24 school districts at Oklahoma City. If you were just starting from scratch, you would never design a city with 24 school districts. We have school districts embedded inside school districts. If there's a silver lining to all of that, is that there are 24 choices on what school district you want to live in, and you can still live in the city limits. And so there are incredible discrepancies between the quality of education inside the city limits. And the ones with the better schools, those are the neighborhoods where people are living. So you've got to figure out that education component, and I think that's the biggest challenge. But generally what it looks like is that they want to live in an urban setting. They would like to live in a community where they don't have to own a car. They want that to be options. And I think those are the challenges. You know, we all live in cities we didn't build. You know, and I think, you know, so you have to figure out how you're going to, you know, restructure your city, how you're going to, you know, alter what you have. You don't get to start from scratch. Where every city has a history and a political culture and a way of doing things, and you have to kind of look at all that, and then how we're going to mold it going forward to, you know, to create the type of city that we want. And no, you can't ever copy another way another city did it exactly, because, you know, that city's experiences are different. The political culture is different, or the voting pool is different, or the zonings are different. But you know, you have to kind of look at other successes and then figure out, well, how do we make that work here? Who are the champions? Who can help us make that work here? Yes.
Trying to get millennials, I mean, they're the movers and shakers. It's not those of us that are sitting in this, or I'll speak for myself.
Right.
It ain't me that's going to continue the growth in this town. And how do but the people who are sitting in the city council and thank you for being here, Mayor, and I see your hair's getting a little bit towards my color. How do
Thank
you you wear it well. How do you reach out to that age group now and get them involved in the process? Because what I see from my tiny little viewpoint is we still have in this town big money interests. They own the stuff downtown. They want to, now all of a sudden it's high-rise buildings downtown.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion, the millennials that are our future are not interested in another high-rise. They're interested in, if you have time before you leave tomorrow, go downtown. We have beautiful vintage buildings that are the coolest. I'm assuming that that's what the millennials would like to see. And then maybe so how do we reach out to those people, get them into this civic endeavor that is the city?
It's hard.
Oh.
But I can, you're on the right.
Besides free beer.
Well, I think the bigger question is this.
That gets people with gray hair too, by the way. It does work.
So, who's more likely to accept change? Young people or older people? Younger people. Who's more likely to vote on election day? Older people. And so the secret to politics has become, how do we convince older people to create a city for younger people? And by now I've been on a lot of ballots as my running as a candidate, pushing an initiative, and I noticed one time that I ran into this familiar pattern out there. I would find myself in some distant suburban neighborhood meeting. And, I'm giving it my best shot, and I'm, got all my talking points down, and I'll spot somebody, usually near the back, that isn't buying a word I'm saying. And I figure out pretty quickly this person doesn't like downtown, they don't like taxes, and they don't like me. And when I've lost the intellectual argument with them, I close with this. I say, well, all I can tell you is we're creating a city where your kid and your grandkid are going to choose to live. And in Oklahoma City, they realize what that means because my generation left. So it's very real. And now there's this sense that young people want to stay. And that person may not like taxes, they may not like downtown, and they may not like the mayor. They like their grandkids. And usually I try to convince them that that's the reason they should support it. Not because it's in their best interest, except that they want their grandkids around. I've had some success with that. And even though we pass a lot of initiatives, we have not lost an election since like 1986. I mean, it's an extraordinary run. But we barely won a lot of them. So there's this perception, even inside our own state, that we pass these things easy because we always pass them. But they're not easy. We have to fight and scratch every time to pass these initiatives, to keep it going. And one thing that I think, my dad, who was a postman, once told me that happiness is having something to look forward to. And in Oklahoma City, we've never quit planting seeds. And so, yeah, something new is always opening up, but there's always some more coming too. And so there's always things to talk about, and the things that haven't come up yet, they're always more exciting than the things that are actually open. It's kind of like the third string quarterback that never plays. He's always the most popular player of the team. He's never had a chance to fail, and so everyone just assumes he would do well. Having things coming out of the pipeline, I think, are very important for positive energy in the community. And you need positive energy to get people to vote yes. It's easy to get people to vote no. You just have to kind of poke a hole in it and talk about some hidden agenda or some secret people that are going to get wealthy because of this initiative. Or my favorite is, if you vote no on this one, they'll bring something back that you really like. And of course, it's like, you know, these things are drawn up on the back of a napkin, you know, and you can just bring it back next week and change it. I mean, you don't bring it back, you know, into something they like very often. I mean, some cities have, but you know, we've been successful by the skin of our teeth a few times on getting these things done too. Yes?
I really appreciate your relation of the health initiative and the work that you put into that, the work of the city, and especially connecting it back to the built environment. What was the opportunity cost of taking that initiative on? It sounds like you phrased it as if it was part personal, part self-awareness of the community.
Well,
there's certainly risk in, you know, confronting people with their health challenges.
Yeah, no, you're right. If there was political, interesting, I didn't really mention it, but there was no cost to that whole initiative. It was just me and the bully pulpit and getting earned free media. So there was, the city council never passed, you know, an initiative about it. I just went out and did it. And but here's interesting. When I had the idea and I was going to do it, and I wasn't really telling people what we were going to do. I mean, it was kind of a need-to-know basis. And a few days before, I have a kind of a political consultant at the time. I don't use him now, but I did then. And I told him about it, and he said, "Do not do that." And I realized that it was going against you know, you're an elected official. There's this instinct. I mean, and you cannot really get rid of it. You can overcome it, but you can't get, it's always there. You have to tell people, you want to tell people what they want to hear, right? I mean, who wants to tell people? Well, I was calling the press conference to put people on a diet, to tell people they were overweight and we need to lose weight. I mean, nobody wanted to hear that. And it started, I mean, it almost became, you know, kind of a reputation, I thought, of telling people what they don't want to hear. And after a while, people kind of got used to hearing it, and I actually benefited from it. So there was political